Okay, so we are live. Okay, so hey everyone, my name is Pampias. This is the second session in this series, and today we have Mr. Shakthi Kannan. He is a free software developer. He has worked as a senior developer in many companies. He's very experienced and he contributed a lot of software projects, and he has done some amazing things. And he's actually been advocating for free software for quite some time. So it's actually very awesome to have someone like him with us today. Hi, Shakti.
Hi, very good morning to one and all. Thanks for joining in on a Saturday.
Yes. So again, I mean, almost every talk show just begins from here. It's sort of a cliche at this point, but please do tell us about yourself, about what you do.
Hi, yeah, so my name is Shakthi Kannan. As mentioned, been in the free software ecosystem and community for quite some time now. At present, I hack on OCaml, especially the multi-core version of it. And yes, I've been working on a lot of free software projects from Fedora and then ARM, embedded Linux, and Haskell, and a lot more projects. You can just find the relevant work online. But yes, I've been there in it for a long time.
Yes. So let's just get started. Let's just get started from your starting. So, okay, how did you get introduced to free software? So we know that you actually completed your bachelor's here in India and at an IIT, and then you went abroad for your master's.
Uh,
So when
right. So actually, I didn't study in IIT. I did one remote course from IIT Kharagpur. It was from one institute called LNet 3L, and they had Red Hat floppies which they used to uh, install on the available computers, and that's where I learned about C and data structures. It was a very nice
yeah,
course, and that's where I got introduced to the command line, the terminal, and sort of opened up the world of GNU Linux for me. So it was during my undergrad where I actually started to learn about these tools and the wonderful software that they have written.
yeah. So how? Okay, so like when did you come to know about the philosophy behind the software? And I mean, were you aware from the start, or first did you just follow the technical part of it first, then you came to the philosophy? How was it?
So I've attended few lectures from Richard Stallman when he used to visit in India, and I was quite inspired and motivated by his talks, and that's when I started to read a bit more about the history behind free software and why it came into existence, and it taught me uh, many important things about the software side of things and also the philosophy side of things. And then when I went on to do my master's in the US, again, I was mostly involved with the free software in the labs, and I used to play around a lot with different distributions. And so that's how the journey began.
Right, right, right. So okay, so you went abroad, and obviously the education field is different here and abroad. And how was the free software community there? And what did you think that what do you think what did you feel was missing in India when compared to like the universities abroad, the communities abroad?
So there are communities everywhere, and I didn't have much time, honestly, to engage with them when I was in the US. But then when I came back to India after graduation, I really did want to sort of work with the community for a long period of time. That was one of the motivations. And people generally ask me like, why didn't you stay back in the US, and why did you have to come back to India? It's a typical question, but I I always move where work takes me to. and
Hmm.
that was my main motivation. I didn't really be bothered about whether you're in India or in the US or elsewhere. To me, it's the work that I do that really matters, and the people I work with are also very important for me. So, and I slowly started to you know uh, talk to colleges and do workshops based on whatever I knew. So that's how I began
Hmm.
to start work with the community in India.
Right, right. So, how did you start contributing to the Fedora project? Could you just let us know like a little bit of the story?
Right. So the Fedora, I was initially interested in writing good software and free
Hmm.
software, of course. And when I looked at different programming languages, Haskell got my attention. It was functional, it was pure. It is lazy though. And so I started packaging a lot of Haskell packages. As I've always been dabbling between hardware and software, and so I was also one of the co-mentors for the Fedora Electronic Lab. It doesn't
Ah,
exist right now, but we used to maintain a lot of packages which were made into a distribution and used extensively in academia and in the industry. So that brought me to Red Hat. So I worked in Fedora for about
okay.
5 years or so. So
Nice, nice. Then again, you after that you went on and you still contribute to a lot of projects. And even today, you actually engage quite a lot with the community. You actually take sessions like this a lot. So, how do you think the free software community in India has, like grown in this matter in the span of these maybe 10, 15, 20 years?
oh, it has definitely come up a long way, actually. At least when I was doing my undergrad in India, it was way back in the 1998 to 2002. So that time, I mean, we didn't have so many community events, and although I used to use Red Hat to do my programming and to learn everything, it the community was not that widespread. So one of the motivations for me to come back to India is to sort of work with these communities and grow them and give whatever guidance that I know of. And so today we see so many events, and students in colleges today are exposed to these tools and languages and the frameworks. So it has definitely uh, grown drastically, and people are talking about free and open source software today. So it is definitely a very positive change, but we still have to do a lot more, I believe.
Uh, so one thing I'd like to discuss in that in context itself is now even nowadays. I mean, when we both start talking, and even in this talk, we actually use the term free software in like instead of open source for the most case. So, but today, even still, the communities seem to be a bit more focused on open source. And even when they say FOSS, what they actually imply is open source. Do you think the free students are not very, aware of why free software is relevant, and are, because of the whole even companies even the companies who are promoting free software actually even their posters in their Twitter tweets, they actually mention open source more than they mention free software. So do you think even though we have grown as a FOSS community, free software awareness is still lacking in some sense?
So, in terms of awareness, yes, I think the philosophy of free software has to be emphasized, and uh, the people have to distinguish between open source and free or free libre software, because it is very important, especially with the more and more hardware being controlled remotely. The philosophy aspect becomes very crucial. It will take time because uh, there's a lot of inertia with the masses. So to
Hmm.
make people aware with events and sessions like these, I think people will uh, learn to understand and appreciate why the free software community started in the first place.
Sure. So right now, we are at the spot where, like we have a lot of developers coming out of India, like every year, not just as computer science graduates, simply as people who are interested in programming. We have school children who are, like getting into programming. They're actually contributing to those projects. So what do you think we can actually do to actually, like not all of these students are very much aware of the whole open source and free software thing, or in general, they mostly have only seen the pragmatic side of the whole thing. What do you think we can do to help these people come into the community, be a part of the community, and get the whole free software experience?
So one very important event that needs to be conducted is hackathons. I think the focus of hackathons are that you actually get hands-on experience, and
Mhm.
when you have a wide class of people from experienced developers to newbies, it gives them a platform and an opportunity to see how other people are working. And that hands-on experience is something that needs to be emphasized. I mean, theory is important, there's no doubt about that. But equally, I think if people early on in their college life, if they're able to actually participate in these hackathon sessions. I'm not talking about the virtual ones. Of course, now that's the only possible way. And the situation improves. I think having more hackathons will be quite useful. A lot of conferences in India do have sprint sessions, maybe before the conference or after the conference, so people can sit down and then work together and solve bugs and uh, fix errors and submit PRs. So I believe that hackathons are a very, very good way to give that kind of exposure to the community.
True. But how you sort of felt is like, the thing is that, now this is sort of something that has the community has been, like struggling with. As in, hackathons are, like losing what they used to be. This is something that, a lot of people in the community itself are saying that before hackathons used to be about this whole, getting together, having fun, hacking overnight, that sort of vibe. But at least some part of the community feels like nowadays hackathons are turning into just a competition, into just something that people come so that they can put in their like resume, or something they can get credits for at college, because nowadays in colleges they actually do that.
So the definition and the objectives of a hackathon should be clearly defined. So if
Mm,
you take a hackathon, say for a community project, the objective for any participant should be how do I get myself familiar with the tools that are being used in the project? How do I understand a Git workflow that is being used by, or how do I submit a patch? If I don't understand a specific module in the project, um, what does it do? Or if I have a specific bug that needs to be fixed, how do I uh, first triage the bug? How do
mm,
I isolate the bug and then figure out how to fix the bug? So those
yep.
kinds of technical things are the ones that should be focused in the hackathon. And the outcome is that once you go back, you should be familiar with most of the aspects of the project and continue to work individually,
Mm-hmm.
and also interact with the project team members when required. So I think that should be the focus of a hackathon, that you learning is important, and learning to continue to work with the project after the hackathon sessions should be focused. uh,
That is,
I do hear the point that yeah, some hackathons have competitions and certificates, but uh, personally, I feel that people's work should reflect on who they are and what they have done, rather than a certificate.
So, yeah. So even if you like the same thing itself, like even so, even at Debian, we have people who come and do GSOC for Debian, and they come, they do it, and they leave, and like there is no follow up. They don't stay in the community. They only stay as long as the GSOC project, and after the project, they just end up leaving. And there are actually projects that like were completed at the point of like in the scope of GSOC, but they are not maintained after. So this sort of things still happen. What do you think are the reasons for it, and what do you think we can do to maybe improve that situation?
Right. So that's a good observation. Something that I have tried to emphasize to a lot of student developers, especially when they have used my book to read and get through GSOC.
Hmm.
What I the perspective that they should gain is that whether you're working on a project or you're working for a company or institution, I think it's good to work at least like 3 to 4 years in a project to really understand the different modules, different scope of the project, how things work. It takes that much time. So just working for 3 months, yes, you would have contributed something, but if you continue to contribute to the project over a longer period of time, the number of network connections that you build will be much higher, and that will even help you get a job. So it is
Hmm.
very important that on an average, whether it is a uh, official work that you're doing or you're working on a community project, I would say at least work for 3 to 4 years to really understand about the project and get to know the team members and so on and so forth. And when you have that long-term vision, um, then that experience will be quite valuable.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah, so just doing the GSOC and not continuing, is it might serve your purpose for the day, but in the long term, if you want to benefit and the project should also benefit, I think some kind of follow up
Hmm.
with the project team members is very useful.
That is true. In so regarding the students itself, another thing that like I'd like to discuss is uh, at least in India, engineering and being an engineer and a doctor is something that everyone has at their mind upon like since it's like default. Unless they develop some skill or some affinity to some particular field, most Indian students or Indian kids will just end up becoming an engineer or doctor. And so that has actually come to a point where we actually have students who are like, we don't want to be engineers, we are here just for the degree, or we just here to do the job. And there are two kinds of people who are like, you should actually follow your dreams, you should actually do only what you want. Then there are people who are like, the Indian situation, the Indian economic situation is different, you cannot blame someone for their choices. And I think I'm actually the kind of person who says that you can actually not, people have their own life situations and they take their own choices. But and as a consequence of this whole issue, what has come up is that you know some even at least in colleges, not everyone is actually interested in what they study, and hence the enthusiasm towards the things they're studying has reduced. This has actually resulted in like college communities actually not being able to function properly, because like when we try to actually like make events or organize events, the response is very cold. And students more often than not actually they what they ask is whether we'll get a certificate or whether we'll be able to show this somewhere. And more or less students does not see the value that they might get as an experience of being part of such an event. And actually the skill that they may get from a workshop or as. Do you think that such an issue, like what do you think about that? It's not something that that is discussed upon a lot. and it's not something that we don't know. We do not know that if we want to fix or if it's fixable. What do you think about this whole
Yeah.
situation in the Indian
So
colleges?
the most important thing is that you should do what you love to work with. Nothing should be forced on to any individual. Whatever is their interest, um, provided they find their correct interest, they should pursue that. I mean, I don't think anybody should be like forced to do one particular area of expertise or anything. Because once you force things, they will obviously will not be much interested in that. And including free, liberal, and open source software, what I say is, if you really understood and you appreciate the philosophy and the benefits of it, I mean, if you really understand that, then you go ahead and do it. Even when
Yep,
we do these advocacy workshops, sometimes people don't get the picture. Maybe they don't believe in the model, the philosophy, which is fine. That is their point of view. But some people might take some time to understand. They might do other jobs and get that much of experience, and then eventually they'll come back and say, oh right, you people were right in the first place, which is fine. I mean, sometimes it happens. But I think it is best not to blame anybody else, but try to do self introspection, find what your interests are. And today there's not any field that is not touched by software. So it doesn't necessarily have to be computer science. There are other fields where software is quite useful, and there you can see how to use free software there. But the most important
yep,
thing is to find what interests you and follow your passion. There's a very famous saying that don't follow the fashion, but try to follow your passion. I don't remember the author who said that, but it's very very true, because once you have interest or you're passionate about something, you want to pursue it. Doesn't matter whether it's day or night or weekday or weekend, you will still work on it. So it is very important that you focus on your interest and you pursue that, irrespective of what your environment or the world says. That's very crucial.
true, true, very true. And again, moving through this whole colleges and this whole education space that we have currently in India, and in regards to free software itself, one issue that I've felt with the education system, and one that I've this has come up in multiple times within our community, and with like when I talk to people, is that, so just as an example, like we are taught about compilers, and but we are not actually taught, like we don't actually do anything practical with it. And some people say that that is something that we are expected to on our own time, and some people say that no, colleges should actually try and do this, include this in the syllabus itself, the whole practical thing. So more often than not, we have tons of classes every semester. There are actually classes on machine learning like nowadays in seventh or eighth semester in KTU, which is like the university in Kerala, the big university. But they don't end up teaching students like basic. It's just like like for the sake of saying like, oh, we have a course on this. No, we have a subject on this at this year. So, what is your stand on that?
So at a college level, I honestly think that faculty are there to guide you, and I think there should be a lot of effort on self study.
Hmm.
And so of course there's a lot, as you said, there's a lot of courses available online. There's a lot of reading material that people have access to today. And hence the effort should always be by the individual for their own growth. It is very easy to like put the blame on somebody else, but it's not going to help the individual as such. So if you want to seek information, if you want to learn something, then you have to take that extra effort. And if you want to implement a compiler, then you need to look at existing uh, practical examples, or pick up some free software compiler project, look at what bugs there are, and try to work your way through that. So yes, practical experience is important, it's useful. But if something that is interest to you, and you want to pursue that, then you should take that extra effort to learn that. So I think what you want to do in your whatever in the framework of your college system, you have to do that. And on top of that, if you want to learn something more, that is good, provided you have the time. But the effort again has to come from the individual. So again, forcing some things onto people is not going to work. So
True. Okay. Now, could you actually, like maybe tell us? So, yeah, you've actually, in these few, like 20 years, you've actually come, like, you've actually taken sessions in Kerala. You've actually taken sessions in, like, like most of. When I went through your blog, I saw a lot of places in South India itself. So you've actually met with a lot of students. You've actually met a lot of communities. So what do you think is the general trend among students nowadays? Do you find a lot of passionate people, or do you find that every session is mostly a mixed bag? Some are passionate, some are just there for the sake of the certificate, that sort of thing.
yeah, it is always a mixed bag, but I can see the trend is changing.
No.
There are, at least with the conferences that happen in India, we are seeing a lot more students who are getting their hands on and they're publishing their GitHub profiles, and it's going to get better, of course. And I think there's a lot of potential. So it has been changing, but you'll always have that mixed bag. It's just that how much percentage are actively seeking to learn new things, and how many people are just satisfied with the certificates. The reason that I don't uh, really go with the certificates is because if all of the students have certificates, there is no way to distinguish one from the other. But then if you like really show me some patch that you have created, some bug that you've fixed, and then I can ask you questions about how you went about troubleshooting, what errors did you face, how did you go about fixing the bug. So those kind of questions will sort of help me understand your thinking process, and that is quite open and transparent in our free software community. And I like to hear more about those things from students.
Then, so yeah, I guess one something that you do which is related to self learning and growing at your own pace is your. I found a small repo called Operation Blue Moon in your GitLab. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Right. Can you see my screen? I can probably.
Yeah, sure, sure. Your screen's visible.
Right. So this is the book that I wrote, mostly for students and IT professionals who want to get started with free, liber, and open source software. So I would encourage you to read it. A lot of GSockers read it, and they said it's quite useful. Um, so let me open. Yeah. So Operation Blue Moon project was started few years back. Actually, I've been using an internal instance for my own requirements. So basically, what it allows you to do is to learn to be self-disciplined and trying to have a long-term plan. A long-term plan could be like 3 to 5 years, and then you have break it down into short-term plans, say like 1 year or 2 years, and you further break it down into different sprint cycles. So a sprint typically goes to about 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and then you start to, it's a divide and conquer algorithm, right? So you have a large objective that you want to achieve, you break it down into smaller milestones, and then you work towards it on a daily basis. So you estimate like how many hours do you want to spend per day.
Hmm.
You will see it's all public actually. So you
Yeah.
pick some uh, job role that you are very passionate about, and then you start to write about the skills that you need to develop, the kind of reading that you need to do. So those you list in a goal file, and then it's very very detailed, and you can actually go down to the granularity level as to how many hours you want to spend for a specific task. So you can plan that, and then we have like bi-weekly stand-up meetings to say where people are doing, and you will find some sample files here as well. Let me just open one for you
Sure.
to give you an idea. So these are the sprints. This is the plan. Let me take. So there are some roles that people are interested in. So let's take a full stack developer, and maybe I'll take Sandeep's. Right. So he has some books that he wants to read on. So many tasks he has completed. Some things he want to work with databases. Uh, this plan can be incomplete. It can be revisited every 6 months. We review that. Every year we go through it and see what needs to be done. People also use this experience to connect with other free software developers, and also get hired based on your work. So it's a bit transparent, and but it also gives you an idea as to where you want to go, and it gives you a way to tell you how to do things, and basically how have you been doing over time. One important thing here is that you are actually comparing yourself over time. You're not like comparing two different plans. Whatever that you want to do, you prepare a plan. You should be justified why you are doing this, and that is very important, because you really need to be uh, ascertain that this is what you want to do in life, and hence based on that you see what are the skills that are required in order to achieve that, and then you list everything down. You see how much you know and how much you need to know, and then look at different, maybe it's a course that you have to do, maybe it is a book that you need to read, maybe you have some bugs that you have to fix in a project. So you list everything down, and then you go to the sprints. Let me just give you an example of a sprint. So the current sprint is in 20. So we have about 4 years of data here. This is just an Emacs org file.
Yeah.
And then this is the current sprint that is running October 1st to 17th. No reports yet, but you see Akshay has been watching some videos, technical videos, and Bhavin attended PyCon India, is reading the SRE book. Jason is working towards a degree in English.
Oh,
So, and all of them are in different parts of India. Sandeep is
nice.
working on software essays. Yeah. So, and once they have clocked down the time, they just submit a PR, and then I just merge it. So, what is important is to track how many hours you spend in a day. The distraction today that people have is quite enormous. Um, I'm not saying social media is bad. You should not watch TV. I mean, you can do all of that, but at the same time, you need to ensure that you also work and you
Yeah.
learn. So most of them allocate like 1 hour every day, 1 hour dedicated. Like if you have to read something, you like switch off the internet, switch off the TV, switch off your phone. Just focus that 1 hour on reading, and it's very important to get that concentration going. And they've been very consistent. If you see some of the reports, they've been like consistently clocking 1 hour every day for the last 4 years, and that's the time that they have dedicated, that they're investing to learn, right? So this kind of self-discipline sort of comes up and helps you in a long way. The reason that it is open and transparent also sort of puts them in a pressure to be more disciplined, because once you have missed completing some tasks in few sprints, it will show up. So it sort of has the accountability feature in that. So do go through this. It's been running quite well, and if more people are interested, just feel free to contact.
Sure. Sure. So yeah, all this are managed in an org file. So you're an Emacs user, and I'm an Emacs user too. So obviously we have to talk about Emacs. Uh, okay, so when did you start using Emacs? How did you get into Emacs?
Yeah, so yeah, I've been an Emacs user for a really, really long time. I used to just maintain .el files. Today, there are nice distributions that are available for people to get started with. Um, and I've never used or went to anything else because once you start using Emacs and you get that muscle memory in your fingers. I don't think you'll want to go back to anything else. One analogy that I would like to say with respect to Emacs is like it's a tailored solution, and whether you want to buy a ready-made shirt or you want to make a tailored shirt, the tailored shirt will suit you much better than the ready-made shirt. And so Emacs can be
Yep.
really customized to suit your individual needs, and that's when your productivity boosts up. So um, yeah, so that's the benefit of using Emacs.
What I've always felt is that, like I use Emacs, and like when I go to another editor for some reason at some point, I feel like I'm not at home. And I feel at home at Emacs, like all my fingers know what to do, what to press for what. And I sort of
Exactly.
really miss that.
Exactly. So that's the important thing, right? So once you have everything in muscle memory, and you don't need to go to the mouse, and you can just zip your way through getting things done. I mean, it will be really, really productive. You have to really experience that to say it.
True,
Um,
true.
and I also help organize the Emacs Asia Pacific meetups on the fourth Saturday of every month. Again, we use Jitsi. It's very informal. Um, so you should see the announcements on my social media feeds. So feel free to join in if you're interested.
Someone actually suggested that to me. We are actually trying to form a small Emacs, users group in Kerala. We have a metric room and everything. So hopefully we'll join. We'll all try to join for the next one, next month, I guess.
Right. So it's usually at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Indian Standard Time, so that some of the European Emacs users can also join in. Uh, so it's been very informal. We don't have a fixed agenda. People start to share their Emacs frames, and they show cool tips and things that they have been working with. So it's a lot of learning and a lot of fun, and definitely something to look forward to.
Okay, what would you say is your most favorite Emacs package? I mean, everyone loves org mode, but like besides that,
Oh, the one I really liked is no easy keys.
oh,
There's a, there's
what's
a
that?
there's a EL file called no easy keys. Basically, it will disable your arrow keys, your
Uh,
home, end, everything. So you are sort of forced to use your
or
control
yeah,
P, control N, control F, control B to move your cursor. And that's something I really liked, and I wish every Emacs user uses it because uh, once you move your fingers away from the keyboard, I think you start losing productivity.
okay, so okay. So I feel a little, guilty here. So like the first 1.5 years I was using Emacs. I actually used the Emacs key bindings. Then I actually switched to evil mode and started using the Vim key bindings because like I yeah I sort of like I don't know. I sort of, like the whole. I sort of got behind the whole, WD for DW for deleting the words. Like that sort of thing just sort of made a little bit more. And it just stuck with me. And I was like, I started using that. Have you ever tried evil mode or, thought about switching?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of VI or Vim users using Space Max or Doom Emacs because they want to use evil mode with org mode, and so there are two basically uh, really remarkable features of Emacs that people cannot avoid. One is, of course, org mode. The other one is Magit, which is a Git interface
Yep.
for your project. So uh, there are a lot of distributions today with Emacs that you can use with evil mode, but I've never used VI or Vim that much. Like I start off very early in Emacs, so I'm sort of used to uh, the shortcuts, and I don't use QWERTY keyboard layout. I use the Dvorak, so I don't have that Control X issue that people usually complain about. The Dvorak keyboard layout is quite nice to use with Emacs, and I've been using it for many years, and I've not had any uh, repetitive strain injury or anything like that. So that is one thing that has been a little beneficial. But yeah, I mean, if Vim shortcuts in a different Emacs distribution works for you, that's fine. I mean, as long as you are productive in whatever you're doing. But I don't see the other side of uh, how people like using evil mode. I'm not used to working on that.
Right. Okay. So now, what distributions are you using right now? Just a curious question.
Yeah, so I use a free liberal distribution called Parabola GNU Linux. Um, it,
Based on
uh,
Arch.
it is Arch, which is without the binary blobs. That's what I use primarily. Of course, servers depends on what needs to be tested. That can vary, but primary thing is Parabola. I've been using it for many years now. It's a rolling distribution, and it's been rock solid. The developers do a really good job, and I've really not had any issues. And being a rolling distribution, I get the latest packages, so I'm happy with that.
What is your general opinion about Debian?
I believe Debian also has some sort of a rolling distribution. You can have unstable.
Yeah, Debian unstable. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So I think, yeah, if people want to get the latest packages, you can just switch your repos to unstable.
Yeah. All right. So again, coming back full circle, we've actually talked. We actually started the conversation about your work, then how you through your work you've actually come into contact with the communities, student communities in India, and your perspective, like what you've seen in the community. And then we actually, we went through how the communities can actually the students in these communities can actually help if not help, I mean how they can better themselves, how they can bring out the productivity. So what do you think the people running these communities, people like myself, people running these communities can actually do so as to accommodate these students who are trying to get better at these things, who are trying to contribute to free thought?
So my main request to organizers is that it you need to have events, and you need to make sure the events happen every year, irrespective of what the situation is. Uh, we are in a marathon race, and hence being consistent is very, very important. uh, like like how we discussed, many students, they work on a project for a short period of time, and then they leave, they do something else, and that's not going to add much value in the long term. So you want to continue to work in a project for many years, so that you are contributing significantly to the project, and also your it's a good learning experience for you. And so having events is important. Having events at different venues is also important, so that we are able to um, reach out to a lot more people, and making sure the events happen regularly. I think that is also very, very crucial.
Are you mentoring for any free software project right now? Are you actually looking for contributors whom you can mentor?
Right now, I don't have that much of bandwidth, but if there's some specific project that people are interested in, I can always refer them to the people in the project, so that uh, they can actively work with you on that.
So then, so at last but not least, what would you like to tell to the students who are, like we've actually talked a lot anyways, but like, what would you actually try to tell students who are just getting started? I mean, through these events such as Hacktober Fest, who are getting started into like open source and computer science in general. What would you say? Like, what do you think you wished you knew when you were starting up?
Uh, I was actually quite busy when I was studying. I made sure that I used up all my time uh, reading and trying things out hands-on on the computer. So the time the students get during the college life is a lot. And one thing that I would definitely advise is that make the best use of it. Whatever subject that you're studying, I would say try to go deep, understand the concepts. Make sure you are thorough with your foundations, because that much of time you will not get when you start working. You will have absolutely um, no time to learn. You have project deadlines to get things done. So that college lifetime is you have a lot of time to really learn. And if you like sort of spend that time really learning, really work hard, I think you will reap the benefits of it over the years. So that's something that I would like students to do. uh, Abraham, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
All right, all right. The call just dropped. Anyway, so yeah, we've come to an end of our session. I'd like to thank Shakti for joining us. It was a very interesting conversation. All your perspectives were very interesting. It was very interesting, and I'm sure we can actually take quite a bit of notes and actually improve the situations in communities that we actually come across and the one we are running. And on behalf of everyone at the core team of Student Developer Society and our community members, I'd like to thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure answering a lot of the questions, and I think they're pretty common questions that students will have. Try to be focused in whatever you're doing. Try to make the best use of the time that is available to you. I understand there can be a lot of distractions coming your way, but how we overcome those, stay focused, deliver the project, deliver your task, learn along the way. I think those should be really be the emphasis and the need today. Once you do that, everything else will just fall in place. I mean, the jobs, the salary perks, the travel, everything will come automatically. So keep the learning going. Free software definitely gives everyone a chance to experiment and learn with the software and hardware. Focus on the fundamentals. Yeah, and my online presence goes by the name Shaktiman. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any follow-up questions, and do keep in touch and stay safe, of course. Thank you.
Uh, so thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. We have more sessions coming and hope you guys will join us then too. Thank you.